Hey everyone, welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Michael Regan, along with my always co-host, Kathryn Peterson. And today we bring a special guest, an old friend, not because he's old, but because we've been friends a long time. This is an industry leader in the housing industry that I know many of you will know, and some of you may have spent some time with, but we're going to try to unpack some things that maybe you haven't heard him talk about. And I will let my good friend Kathryn Peterson get us started with today's podcast. So, Kathryn, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here as always. And Todd hardly needs an introduction because I think if you've been in mortgage for any period of time, you know who he is. Most notably recently, I would say, is Win by Noon, but he had a long mortgage career before that. He also did some things outside of that, like owned a couple bike shops and has a wonderful wife and daughters, and any girl dad, which you guys both are, is holds a special place in my heart. So I also think that it's important just to cover that he did run a really big mortgage office and has mentored and coached many, many loan originators over the years with Building Champions. And we are so happy to have Todd with us today. I'm excited to dig in and have everybody get to know him a little bit more. So thanks so much, Todd, for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to spending time with the two of you for a long time.
Good. Well, you're always welcome. So we're glad to have you. So one thing just to start with, you're really well connected in the mortgage industry. I think probably one of the most connected people that I know. So what makes this industry so unique?
I think what makes it unique is the openness of the leaders of the industry, right? We interview top producers week in and week out who share all the deep, dark secrets that they're working on with everyone else. And I just love the fact that people are an open book and aren't trying to hide what's working for them. They're willing to get out there, standing on a big platform and shout it out to the world. Hey, here's what I'm doing that works. And hopefully the person who's listening will actually internalize it, figure out how it might work for them, and then take action.
Yeah, you're really good, Todd, at bringing people together. Kathryn's right. So I would definitely call you a connector. And you do it in a way that doesn't seem, the old, what was it, Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. You always seem to carry an authenticity about you that is really noticeable. And I think it draws people in to want to listen to what you have to say, to attend what you're hosting, to participate in what you're talking about. And I find that refreshing because many times the feedback that I get as a coach, and I think you may have experienced some in the same seat, is people come in with a little bit of a defense mechanism up because their first reaction is, okay, what's the pitch? What's the hook? And you do such a great job of lowering that barrier and saying, before we talk about anything that even could sound like a pitch or hook, let's really open up, connect, and dig deep so that there's true value to the conversation. And that's a word that I think gets overused, but in your case, it's absolutely applicable. I always enjoy hearing what you have to say.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like you have to understand the human first and get to know them so that the listeners get to know them. And then I think my goal is always to put on the loan originator hat, or whoever the audience is. I try to put on their hat and ask questions from their perspective, and then also put on the coach's hat and ask questions, or I guess more give advice from the coach's chair as well. And I feel like when you can dig in from that perspective, I've really been working hard to be a lot more curious and ask more questions and ask the question behind the question. And I find that when we're successful at doing that, and the person who's on the other side of the podcast or the conversation, feels that, they open up and then they continue to share just in such a big way. And that's what's really the gift to the audience.
Absolutely. So then, because you're talking to so many originators and people all the time, what do you think the largest issues facing originators today is?
Gosh, the largest, I think it's a lot of it's mindset, right? It sounds kind of odd, but I feel like most people feel that their situation is unique and that their market is harder than everyone else's market. And ironically, I interview people who are in similarly tough markets who are having actually really good years. In fact, some of them are having maybe not their best year, but a top 3 year because they're taking action. And so I think mindset is definitely a challenge. And then we could certainly stack up the other stuff that we know is going on in the market: low inventory, right? There's not as many transactions, high interest rates, affordability, all the other things that we could absolutely use as a legitimate excuse But ultimately what I'm seeing is that the folks who are choosing to take action, and it's, you know, it's not flashy or exciting, it's calling your database, it's calling real estate agents, it's connecting, right, is the word that Michael used before, and with people. And when you do that, it may not result in instant business, but it's ultimately in the long run gonna produce great results.
Okay, I want to dig into that because you just tipped a card that I know is in the hand that you play, and that is you are one of the most disciplined people I've met in this business when it comes to fundamental execution, when it comes to doing those things that, as you said, are making the calls, you know, putting together the presentations, scheduling the appointments, really the fundamentals of what it takes to connect with people. You've never made excuses for those that I can remember. I mean, I've been around you way back when you had a nifty Building Champions notebook full of, you know, cut and paste versions of your calendar and your tracker, a pre-win by noon. And you made it clear to me and anyone around you that, hey, I'm willing to learn new things, but never at the expense of my fundamentals. You've always stuck to those. Why are you so convicted by that? Because that's refreshing to me. And not many, most people get caught by the bright, shiny object, and you haven't.
It's funny because, you know, Kathryn mentioned my bike shop days, right? So I grew up racing bicycles, and, you know, it was kind of interesting. I found that there was, you know, three types of people out there. There were the older folks, the folks that are now, you know, were my age back then. And they did the same thing every day, and they just kind of grounded out, and they were steady. Those who are listening, I'm just doing my hand kind of straight across on a flat line. And then you had the people who were kind of lazy, who just kind of, you know, they showed up when it was fun, and they, you know, they showed up when there was group rides, and they would do that. And they were, you know, they were inconsistent, but, you know, but they did have some flashes of brilliance. And then there was the people who were really tactical. They followed a schedule, and they did different things on different days to uh, increase the probability of their success. So, you know, they understood a rest day was important. They understood that, you know, you had to do sprints one day. They understood that you do, you know, a long, steady day with hills. They understood that intervals, you know, had to be mixed in there. And so as I look back on, you know, where did I get the discipline? You know, I learned it back as a kid, you know, racing bikes. And then ironically, the icing on top of the cake was the mindset piece. The people who believed that they could win could win. I had people who I could train with who were equally as fast, if not faster than me, but would get in a race and just couldn't quite do it because their mindset wasn't that of a champion. And so you forward that to today, I realized looking back on it, I'm more of a data person than I realized. I've always been show someone the numbers, and then they can make an educated decision. You know, y'all know my story about Mortgage Coach. I literally bought it my first day in the mortgage business. I bought pants the day before because I only owned shorts. And then the first day in the business, I bought Mortgage Coach, and I realized early on I was showing clients the data. And so when I started looking at my own numbers and where I was getting stuck, you know, I realized that I was getting in my own way by allowing other things on my calendar, other people to schedule things, and basically set my priorities. And so when I got crystal clear that I knew what I had to do, I knew the calls I had to make on a daily basis in order to grow my business. I just wasn't doing them consistently. I was doing them like the bike racers who would show up at the fun stuff and then sometimes had flashes of brilliance, but didn't have consistent results. And once I, you know, kind of put up those, you know, blinders where, you know, I've kind of forced myself to have the discipline, it became really easy. And then the data, I looked at my numbers, and it really proved that what I was doing was working. And so therefore I kept doing it. And then other people said, hey, if I could figure out that system too, then I could do it too. And then that's how Win by Noon was born.
All right, I want to go back though to the beginning of that comment, which you said the fundamental aspect of mindset. That seemed to be a key ingredient in this. So we're definitely unpacking some of the genesis of your disciplines, but something in your head told you not to be the old guys in group one that were doing this, or to be the show up for the fun days in group two. Something in that third group attracted you. Is mindset something you were born with, or is mindset something you've developed over time?
Oh, that's a crazy question. You know, I think it's a little bit of both for me. You know, I had a mother who said you can do anything that you want to do. And so I think I was really fortunate to have that as a, you know, kind of a daily thing, you know, in my house. But I think you have to have intrinsic motivation and mindset along the way. And what I realized is that I never really spent time focusing on that really till the last few years. And so I believe it was just the fact that I think I was lucky. I grew up in a household where I was encouraged that way, and then that I truly enjoyed success. And I don't know, that may sound really bad when I say that, but if I'm going to get out there and do the work, it was a lot more fun to win. I was also a great team player, right? So I also was the person who understood the tactics of a race and would help my teammates be successful and win as well. So it wasn't always about me, but I did understand early on that it was kind of fun to have success.
Yeah, I love the talk on mindset. I think that's such a huge topic in our industry right now. So thanks for even bringing that up. There's been some great posts lately by top people in the industry about mindset and just keeping that flowing. So I'm glad that that's big for you. And you're really big into helping people. And that's, I think, another piece that I see with you all the time. And that really shows through as a passion. Where do you think you got that helping people piece?
It's funny because it probably, came early on again. I think it was just probably, just culturally how I grew up. And then, I mean, bike racing, mortgage and win by noon are my life today. But, if you can translate that backwards, a couple of decades, bikes and bike racing, and my bike racing group was kind of, the predecessor, to this whole thing. But I think kind of as I got in the, in the mortgage business, I was really lucky. I mean, I literally in my second year in the business, I hired a coach at Building Champions, Bill Hart, who mentored me for 4 years. And I learned early on as I studied the other great people in the mortgage business that it was collaboration and teamwork that really got you further faster. And then again, that same thing I mentioned before, where people were willing to get up and share what was working for them. And then I did hear someone at one point on stage gave away all their, kind of this new ideas that were working for them. And I kind of said, well, gosh, wow, that was awesome. Thank you for doing that. I wouldn't have expected to do that. And he said, well, you know what, there's 1,000 people in the audience. And, my guess is maybe 10 will actually take action. I thought, that's rough. And so I, really since then, I've really gone out there and tried to help the people who are kind of stuck. It's, I was really fortunate. I mean, I coached some of the top loan officers in the country, coached CEO on down. And I coached a lot of my friends who were CEOs. I called them their young guns, up and comers. And, I just kind of see the same thing over and over again. I mean, people choose to do it. And if I can, be the catalyst that helps encourage someone along. And a lot of, I think, is who you surround yourself with. I mean, when I first started in the business, no one else was thinking the same way that I was thinking. I mean, one of my best friends still to this day got me in the business. And I left that company, went somewhere else where it wasn't a great company, but that's where I was fortunate enough to meet Michael. And, early on, Michael and I, we did what I guess you'd call masterminding now today, early on, and we sharpened each other. And we were, two new guys in the business. And I think what we did there, and then we would invite other people to be, part of our group, and they would come in and, they might only come 1 week, or, they might not come back for a couple of months. But I think I learned early on that collaboration and teamwork is really the driving force. And I just get a lot out of it. My mission is to help other people reach their potential, whatever they believe it to be. I don't think everyone wants to be $100 million producer. I think some people would be happy being a 20 or $25 million producer. And so I think for me, it's just that push is I love to talk to people and figure out what it is that I can do to help them figure out what's in the way, what's keeping them from taking that action. And so I don't know if I actually answered your question, but that was a long-winded answer to something.
Well, I'm going to jump in then, because I definitely think you answered some of that question, but you also threw out some really interesting nuggets that I hope our listeners are picking up on. One of the things you said earlier was you really focused on the practice of curiosity. And when you bring it back to this level of the way that you collaborate with people, the way you encourage people, the way you help people, I think a lot of what comes out of that is your ability to ask great questions. You demonstrate that curiosity. I've experienced it personally, but I think many around you have. And I think that's, again, one of the things that does set you apart from most folks that attempt to collaborate. But when you really spend time with them, you find out they're really not actively listening. They're competitively listening. They're waiting for you to shut up so they can tell you what they want to tell you. That's not the experience I get when I'm with Todd. You just have this unique, I just spoke of you in the third person, like you're Allen Iverson. I'm not sure how that worked, but I thought you'd appreciate the Philadelphia reference. I think
thank you.
You're welcome. I think most folks recognize that pretty quickly when someone demonstrates genuine curiosity, because they get that sense that, okay, he really cares. Okay, he's really listening. Okay, he's making me think, because the questions are stimulating maybe a different direction than I was tempted to go on my own. And all those things, I think, establish trust, which I know is a key part of the brand that you've co-labored with Dave on in all of these Friday mastermind groups that you guys host. And it's been fun to see how people start to jump on that train with you simply because you lower that barrier, you invite them to be real, and you're real with them when they turn the tables back on you. I can picture you standing up in front of an audience of, I don't know if it's 1,000 people or 1,500 people, but a sales mastery event, um, that you were asked to speak about, what are the secrets to your success, and you got up there and talked about the fundamentals of what became Win by Noon. And I think most people were blown away by, oh my gosh, he's just doing really normal things every single day. You didn't want to wow them. You didn't want to dazzle them. You actually wanted to strip all that away and say, guys, it's not that hard if you'll focus on the fundamentals. And I just think that all comes together in your story. I think that's why Kathryn's right. You're really great at connecting people because you make them feel welcome to connect with you.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's been kind of interesting. I've gone down this trail for the last 12 months, pretty deep with Phil M. Jones, who wrote Exactly What to Say and became an Exactly What to Say certified guide. And I felt like I was pretty good at communicating, but spending time with Phil, I realized I've got so much opportunity to improve. And I love what he says. He says, once you think you know the answer, try to ask 3 more questions to dig deeper. And it's been a challenge. It's been a real challenge. And I do feel like, I was one of those people who showed up and throwed up, show up and throw up all over people. And so I've done I think a better job when I show up in front of a group. Like I spoke to about 100 realtors last week, and I just started off asking them questions, right? I try to engage with the audience first, and it's a little different with a big room like that than if the 3 of us are sitting and having coffee. And I know we can, I know I can improve. I know most people can improve. And again, I give a lot of credit to you, Michael, because early on you were always so inquisitive about what was going on in the mortgage space, as you and I kind of we ran in this parallel world, but then we came together to trade tactics and ideas, and I just think it's a opportunity probably for most people listening to get a little better, and absolutely myself included.
I love that. Ask 2 more questions, ask 3 more questions. That's going to be one of my takeaways. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you grabbed that. In fact, it's funny. I think I am going to grab that too, because one of the things I've done in many of my roundtables is, as we go around and share, one of the rules I have at the roundtable is, as someone presents a dilemma, something that they need some help with from a peer, you have to ask 2 questions first. And one of those questions can't be, "Hey, Todd, can I ask you a question?" That's not a legitimate question. And so I really like this idea as well. And it's probably for the same purpose as you heard from Phil M. Jones, is when you get really good at asking better questions, you tend to get better answers, and the exchange becomes a lot better. And again, I'll pivot off of our old days meeting at the spoon or the fork or some piece of cutlery.
Whatever it was.
It was good, because that's what I felt was really great about that time. While the rest of our peers were running off to K.O. O'Donnell's to drink beer, we were heading to this place to sit down with our notebooks and say, okay, what did you learn this week? What did you hear about? What are you doing? And I really valued that time with you, because it did put me in a position to where I did feel free to ask what I felt were important questions, but maybe I didn't always feel that I had a manager or a peer that I could share those with. Because we were in that parallel universe where we didn't view each other as competitors, it really became this really cool space where we could do that. And I highly encourage any of our listeners who are hearing this to recognize the value of finding someone else in your marketplace that you respect at a high level, but that you like on a personal level, and that you can develop that relationship with. Because a lot of what I think became coaching for me came from the opportunities you and I had in those conversations. I just didn't know at the time you were probably gleaning from a guy like Bill Hart, and it was helping, pass the baton of some of that transfer of questions and exchange that led me to fall in love with coaching people. So again, thanks for all that time we had together.
And I have to say that was a great lead into the next question. So that was like the perfect setup, and Todd, I'll let you jump in here in a second. So who is really doing work that you're interested in. So, who are you collaborating with? Who are you watching online? Who are you studying right now, in or out of the industry?
Well, I mean, definitely Phil Jones is probably at the top of the list because I know that communication matters, and these simple words that he uses are, to me, it's just been a game changer in conversations, not just in business, but also in my personal life. And, having 3 daughters and a wife, it's been a lot of fun. My wife is really worried I'm using, voodoo words on her, but I'm not, I promise. And so that's been, probably, really key. Dave Savage, you mentioned him, Michael. Dave's been, a friend and a mentor. We've been going, doing our Friday mastermind, I think for, gosh, we must be going on eight years now. And it's just something we started on a whim. And, here we are, going later. And so, I mean, I don't know that there's specific people, right? Like for me, I've got AI really high on my list. I know on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a half. I don't know anything about it, and I need to invest time in that. I feel like that's a miss. I feel like marketing is a huge opportunity for people. Deborah Bird, who I collaborate with a lot, I really lean on her a lot for the social media side of things. How do I communicate better online? I'm really invest almost no time into social media, and I know that that's a miss as well. And then I'm just really looking for any other person. They don't have to be, like we interviewed Sean Benojian, #1 loan officer in America, a few weeks ago, and he shared some similar philosophies to what I believe. That was a lot of fun, but you don't need to. It's not the #1 loan officer in America that I'm watching. I'm watching the rest of you. I'm learning from what other people are doing because I'm looking for ideas. I'm looking for opportunities. I'm looking for gaps that I see out there that I can bring back to the community and say, hey, you know what, I heard this the other day. And so I don't know that it's necessarily a large list of people that are specific, but it's a large group of folks that, I think that I'm out there watching. And then I'm also kind of distracted a little bit in the wealth space. I feel like a lot of loan officers talk about being captain of the wealth team. And I think that's one of the things that I love talking to Michael about. He always took that financial planning approach, hey, I'm the center of all these things. But what I realized during this last downturn is a lot of these folks who are quote unquote the captain of the wealth team, when the water goes out, you see you swimming naked, they're financially strapped. And that was super frustrating. So I think wealth is the other part. I'm watching people who are teaching and encouraging others to grow wealth. And I think part of the reason I'm so passionate about First Home IQ, the nonprofit we have that's, working on financial literacy with high schools and colleges, I think is really important to me. So I think that's probably where, as we go forward, you'll see me get more vocal in that space as well. So I know I didn't answer your question about specific people, but it's just lots of you that are listening to this that I'm out there watching.
Yeah, but you definitely threw some seeds in the ground that I think we need to water a little bit. So let's touch on the last one first. So First Home IQ is, in my opinion, a very innovative approach to bringing a level of connection between those of us who professionally are responsible for helping people create wealth and the next generation of people who maybe aren't getting that education either at home or in their school. And you're bringing both content and vision for what's possible into a new generation of people. Just give us the executive summary for those that might have heard of this brand, but don't yet understand why it might matter to them.
Yeah, I think, it's the easy button, right? I think a lot of us, if you're a bit like me, have thought about, I'd love to go out there and teach young people about money. And with everything else going on, right, we're working really hard to get our business going and keep our business on track. And we just don't have time to prioritize that. And so we've got Krista Messerly, who's our executive director. She's done an amazing job of creating great content that people can go out there and use to teach and share, whether it's on social media or a class of high school students or college students, or even just your own clients, running a seminar. So it's a lot of done for you resources and ways to connect. We just did an 8-week class in a high school in Brooklyn. We've got just all sorts of crazy things I can't talk about that are on the horizon with big organizations that really know that there's a need for this. And so what First Home IQ really is, it's the easy button for you as a loan officer. We also have a couple of realtor members and one financial advisor that are ambassadors. You can just go to firsthomeIQ.com/ambassador. You can learn about becoming an ambassador. And it's just an easy way to access the content that you can go out there and just have a different conversation, right? I mean, even some of the ambassadors that I've talked to are using it in their mortgage conversations when they talk to a first-time home buyer and say, gosh, I'm so passionate about helping first-time home buyers. I'm actually an ambassador for an organization called First Home IQ, where we're the first responders of the financial of the industry trying to fight financial illiteracy to help people become financially literate. There's just not one person. It's funny. I introduce myself and, I always struggle with, okay, am I Todd who runs a mortgage team? Am I Todd who runs Win by Noon? And I've changed it up. I just say, oh yeah, I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit called First Home IQ, where we're going out there and we're trying to solve financial literacy for the youth of America. And everyone's like, oh, you're amazing. Like before you're like, oh, I run a mortgage team. Like, oh, all right, next, right? And so it's really a great opportunity, I think, for people to expand who they are and their identity, and really help out a great cause.
All right, but as you say that, now that makes me want to, now this is you and I on a Friday afternoon hashing it out. So cast the vision for me. As you sit today, recognizing that you're not Todd, the guy who runs the mortgage team, you're not Todd who runs Win by Noon, although those things are true, you really are a visionary about what's possible with the future. So let's flash forward. We're having this conversation 3 to 5 years from now. Where will we find Todd Bookspan? What space will you be playing in? What will define that version of your life?
Well, what I'm hoping at that time, I've got two really big platforms. I'm hoping that Win by Noon is huge in influencing people to learn how to prioritize their day and do what seems like really simple, boring tasks, but actually do them consistently to improve their business and their life. And then I'm also hoping that First Home IQ, our goal is to have 1,000 ambassadors by the end of the year. We're over 100 now, and so we definitely have a long haul to get there. But what I'm hoping is that we've truly gotten our content into classrooms across America and into organizations, like the Boys and Girls Club or Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've got lots of organizations like that are interested in what we have, because there's nobody out there that's really doing it in a way where it's not self-serving. They're actually truly trying to help others. And so my goal would be for that to be a commonplace brand that people actually know First Home IQ when they think money, right? I think people think Dave Ramsey. On mortgage industry, folks don't always agree with him unless they say something that he likes and they post it all over social media. However, I think that we can have First Home IQ be positioned up there alongside of really the biggest financial organizations as an organization that's solely focused on just that narrow swath of land that's so important, which is really helping people understand money, credit, all the things that we know, and then hopefully in the long run help them become homeowners, which is the industry that we're all part of and that we love, because we know that huge wealth gap between renters and owners. And we know that we talked about affordability earlier. If we can figure out how to help them be a little bit better off financially from the start, because I talk about it now. I mean, I was embarrassed about it for a long time. I mean, I was flat broke during the financial crisis. So when I talk about the people who, I was one of the people swimming naked, 2008, 2010, and I never want to be in that position again. And ironically, it's through real estate that I got there. And so when I'm hoping that those two platforms that I'm part of, and yeah, I'm sure my mortgage team will be doing great as well. But I think that I'm going to be hopefully be wearing a shirt that on one side says First Home IQ, on the other side is Win by Noon, or front and back, or whatever that is. But I think there's just a huge opportunity, and I'm grateful for people like you guys who are supporting and have jumped in, because that's really what's helping us get the word out there.
You said something earlier about some of the folks that you help that are in the loan origination space. Some of them will want to be the $100 million teams. Some will want to be the $50 million teams. Some are happy building their lives around the $20 million teams. But I think the common thread in any of those is that they be dedicated to improving, to getting better, to finding new ways. And I hope what our audience is hearing when they hear about just a glimpse of your 3 to 5 year future, you're always looking for ways to get better. That's what I think is attractive about spending time around you. That's what I think is attractive to our audience listening to you, is you're sparking the idea in people's minds of don't stay the same. Our friend Daniel Harkov, he talks about building fences. And the minute you start building fences around your life, relationships, professional, financial, spiritual, whatever you're doing, if it's a fenced in space in your life, be prepared that that space is getting smaller and eventually it will die. So I love that you have kind of a no fences approach. It's okay. Or maybe it's a swing for the fences for those of us that love baseball. But you really are pushing through those. And in fact, Kathryn, you're probably thinking like I am, that our friend Patrick Palmer would be thinking, crush your barriers. That's the no fences type of ideology that I love about hearing you and spending time with you, Todd. Count on us to be champions. I don't know what the difference is between an ambassador and a champion, but we're champions for your cause, and we certainly want to give you a platform to talk more about it as it evolves.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. You guys have made me think back to my past of bike racing and all the way to the present and now the next 3 to 5 years. So it's been a fun journey today.
Thank you so much for being here, Todd. The more time I spend with you over the years, the more I like you and the more I want other people to get to know you. So keep doing what you're doing. We are so honored that you're here with us today. Any closing thoughts? Michael, I'll go to you first and we'll let Todd finish it out.
Todd, if we were to open up your summer of 2024 calendar, depending on when someone's listening to this, this may be old news, but as we post date this here in May of 2024, what's the most exciting thing on your calendar this summer?
It's going to sound really, I don't know. I mean, it's my family, right? We rent a place in California for the summer, and it's near my daughter and my son-in-law, and then my daughter from New York comes in, and so I'm looking forward to less work, but really targeted work. I will spend a lot of time hiking with my wife. I'll spend a lot of time walking and talking to people. I'll get out on the beach, and the weather's beautiful. It won't be 130 like it will be in Arizona. And so I think for me, it's a time to step back and be laser focused on what's most important. Because when I work less hours, I'll still be working 35, 40 hours a week, but it's going to be laser focused on what's most important. And then I'm going to be laser focused on putting up a fence at the end of the day so that I can spend the time with my family. I don't know if that's an appropriate use of the fence term.
That might be a boundary, but we can debate
boundary.
That later.
There we go. But I will absolutely unplug and enjoy that time. And it's funny. My goal is to bring that back to Arizona in the fall. And so, I just would encourage everyone listening, right? What is it that you can do today to be even more disciplined around your time? What can you say no to that isn't that important? And, for me, I'm recording this from New Orleans. I'm getting ready to head out to a day of music with family and friends. And I would just encourage you to figure out what you can do to be a little more effective with your time so that when you have the opportunity to go out and have some fun, you can, to quote our friend Bill Hart, you can be all in.
Kathryn, that was the answer given to my friend who first introduced me to Tim Ferriss. So nothing about that response shocks me because he is wholly focused on that ideology of whatever you're doing, be totally present. And as Bill says, be all in. Todd, it's been awesome spending time with you today.
My pleasure. I'm grateful for it. If anyone wants to reach out, easiest things, find me on social. Even though I'm slow to respond, don't hold that against me. However, appreciate it and can't wait to continue to cheer you guys on from the sideline, and love your podcast and wish you guys continued success.
All right. Kathryn Peterson, take us home.
Thanks, Todd, again. We'll see you in person soon, I'm sure. And I'll continue to watch your Instagram Walking with Todds. And thanks for doing that. Thanks for being such a huge, huge influence on this industry and me personally. So thank you so much for that. And with that, we're going to sign off on today's podcast.